Hi Koby, we're here to talk about domestic violence with regard to LGBTQI couples. Can you tell me your own experiences?
Yeah, I lived in a relationship for 3.5 years, which quite quickly turned violent. I think emotional abuse starts the isolation from your family, and being a man is something that you're not really open to talking with your mum or your family about. And then 3 months into the relationship, it gets violent, but some people are good at reeling you back in, and reeling you and making you feel like that they don't mean it, or you feel sorry for them almost, and you want them to love you. And so it took 3.5 years for me to come to realization. Like, I was in a relationship for 2 years, and then I spent a year and a half trying to escape. It's very a hard thing to do, because when you're isolated from your family, I didn't see my mum or my little brothers or any of my family for quite a few years, and that isolation makes it extend so much. It's a bit embarrassing when you go through domestic violence as a man, and that's why not many men come out to speak up. But I think it's vital that someone does, and it's not good. When you're going through violence, it's like equal love, equal marriage rights. Your heart's the same, you hurt the same.
The abuse, what form did it take?
It took emotional, physical, and then it went externally to my family, and that was the isolation from my family. And I still suffer isolation from some of my family because of that, and I still suffer some abuse from my father's side of the family because of that too.
Did you normalise it in any way?
Yes.
Did you realise that something was going on?
I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't want people to know. And I had a fear that because I was involved with the Equal Marriage Rights campaign, that if I spoke out about my experiences, it could jeopardise the campaign. So that prevented me from almost seeking help. But now out of the picture, I see that that's not the case. Like, every person is an individual, and I did normalise it, and almost to a sense where I wanted to protect other people who were around me. So I kind of normalised it for a lot of other people, and made it look good, and put band-aids over things, and would try to please my ex-partner in order to try and get people to like him, because he had a big phobia about people hating him, you know.
Was he, to an extent, paranoid?
Yes, very much so. He was very paranoid, and if anything was posted on Facebook, it'd be about him, or it's almost psychopathic. But he was very good. He's a charming person too, and so the charm would come across, and that charm could it's like a convincing liar, can make you believe anything that they want you to believe. And I believed he was the only one that was there for me, and so I believed that if I left him, I was going to have no one, and my life wouldn't be any good.
Did he have total control over you?
He had total control over me, yes. If he didn't want me to go to an event, I didn't go. If he didn't want me out of the house, I didn't go. From one point, I didn't leave the house for 3 months.
And how long did this abusive relationship last?
3.5 years.
And was it throughout the relationship, or was it different at the beginning?
At the beginning, it was pretty much. Now look back at it, I could see it starting right from the beginning. It was very, very deceitful, almost like. But it's like I almost felt sorry for him, and that was confused for love. And he played on that a bit.
Really?
Well, I think, but I was a caring person, and I'm not going to say I was the perfect person, and I'm not a perfect person, but I wanted to care for him because he'd experienced a lot of trauma in his lifetime. I put it down to that, not that he was hating on me or anything like that.
At what point were you able to break away?
When I was close to my family. And when I reconnected with my family, and I had support behind me.
And what brought on that reconnection?
We moved, because when I first got with him, we lived in North Melbourne, and you can see us, we moved, and every house we got closer to Ballarat, where my mum was and where my brothers were, And eventually we ended up in a house exactly across the road from my mum, and when something happened, I remember he was choking me and I hit him over the head, and I actually fought back, and it was the first time I fought back, and he went to my mum, and my mum come over and she said enough's enough, and I said to him, I'm turning into you, it's the last time I'm ever going to see you, and I haven't seen him from that day forward.
So you fought back for the first time?
I fought back, and that was, and
what triggered that?
What triggered that? That was, I thought I was going to die. He was choking me and I couldn't breathe, and I literally felt like I was going to pass out, and I literally thought I was going to die. And being across the road from my little brothers and my mum, I couldn't have that happen right there, and I kind of feel guilty because I brought it to him. And beforehand, I remember I used to hide in a closet crying, or lay in a bathtub where it was cold because I'd be going through panic, or I would try to do something. But even when his father was present, his father would never even stop him because he'd bash his dad too. So it wasn't just me that didn't normally fight back, but I think the courage, in the end, I fought back. And I told the police when I fought back, and they said it's normal, it's flight, fight, or fright. And I used to take fright, but that time I took the fight and flight, because I fought and I left. And
so, but just going back, you went to the police. At what point did you go to the police?
Well, the police were called throughout our relationships numerous times. So
during all this abuse, the police were called?
The police were called, yes.
By you?
No, by neighbours.
Who heard it?
Yeah, so the police were, who heard it, and they would come. I stood by him through about 6 court cases that was him violently, aggressively attacking me. And when one time he tried to, we were driving in the car, and I was getting along with a lot of people at the party and being my cheeky self, and so he tried to turn into a semi-trailer and kill us both, and I grabbed the wheel and turned it back, and so he sped down a laneway, and we only just got this car, it was 2 weeks old, and he put the pedal to the metal, and it was going about, I don't know how fast, but we ended up smashing through a fence and through 2 brick walls, and I ended up out of the car, and all I can remember is the smell of bricks, and because there's bricks all over everything, and all I can remember is the smell of the dust. And then I can remember seeing my partner laying on the road, and I thought he was dead, and the ambulance wouldn't let me go and see if he was okay, and they said that they're not going to tell me because I'm not his immediate family, and even though we lived together, and so that made me angry that I couldn't know if he was alive or dead.
You weren't his next of kin?
Yes, and so I had to ring his nan, who he hadn't even talked to for 3 years, and find out if she could ring up the hospital to find out if he was okay. And that kind of drew me back in, because
you were concerned.
I was concerned, so then I felt sorry for him, and so I went to the hospital, and I was in hospital myself, and the only reason I knew he was alive was because one of my friends come with me to the hospital. My mum got them to come because my mum got a phone call, and we heard him screaming and yelling at the nurses, and that's the only reason I knew he was alive, because his nan never got back to me until later on, and yeah, but that was a scary time, but that concern, and because I wasn't his next of kin, that drew me back in.
So he wasn't just abusive to you, he was also abusive to himself.
Yes. And he would threaten, like when we lived in a high-rise building, if I left or if I wouldn't have sex with him, he'd threaten, it's because he's not good looking enough, he's not skinny enough, or so he'd pretend he's going to jump off the balcony. And later on I learned that's kind of rape.
So in some ways, not only did you become dependent on him, but he became dependent on you.
Yes, and
for moral support.
And still to this day, he still has. There's still times where he pops up and will have abusive things to say, or tell my friends. He'll ring my friends and say, "I know where Koby is. He's in Fitzroy. I'm not going to hurt him. I'm not going to kill him. I'm just going to hurt him and teach him a lesson." So when I'm in Victoria, I'm still careful about what I post online, and that's a bad thing to have to experience. Like I have to be careful, even though there's a 5-year intervention order and everything like that. It's hard to report incidences to the police because there is, like, I remember I went to report something with my mum and the cop just laughed at me.
Really? Was this in Melbourne?
This was in Ballarat.
Ballarat.
And he just laughed at me, and
how long ago was this?
We broke up 3 years ago in June.
So when you When these incidents were reported to police by your neighbours, what did you tell the police?
We just would refuse to talk,
Really?
and because it's like when we woke up the next morning, it's like nothing had happened. Even though for me I knew something had happened, it's looking back on it, I don't know what I was thinking.
You said you were quite isolated from your family.
Yeah, I didn't get no contact. I remember when I first seen my little brothers from 2 years, they were like this, and then they were like this, and I was like, that made me feel guilty, and that was my wake up point.
But did you have friends?
I had his friends and his family.
So you really were isolated?
Yeah, and so his friends and his family was my friends and my family.
And when the police were called on you both by your neighbours, do you think they treated you differently because you were a same-sex couple, or
Yeah,
not?
yeah. I think it wasn't seen as serious, and like I remember sitting in the Fitzroy courthouse, the naval court there, and seeing and talking, and the judge would look at me while he was presenting his case and talking about his traumatic childhood, and I look at myself and I think, what an idiot. But all I really wanted was to get that love from him and that care from him, and I wanted to see him better, and I still do to this day somewhat want to see him better, but it's not going to happen. Like, I can't put that in my head, you know? Like, it's not my responsibility no more.
Do you miss him?
I don't miss him. There's some things in life that we did together I still remember with good memories. Like, it's not all bad memories, and that's what keeps you there, you know? There's still those good times that, and as people, we like to think of the good times. And when we did break up, it was hard for me to not go back to him, and I almost was weak enough a few times to go back, and he asked me back, and he asked me back, and I nearly went back, but I had to keep reminding myself of the bad feelings and how worse he made me, and not the good things, you know?
And why the intervention order?
Because he was coming to my house, he was going to my mum's, he was posting on gossip sites. I had to pull out of a state election because he was telling people about my being a child and being sexually abused and posting it all on Facebook. He was still trying to have a hold of me and still trying to get me back. And it was, my mum stood with me when I got the intervention order, and the intervention order, to be honest with you, it really is a piece of paper, and it's symbolic.
What does it do?
It's supposed to prevent him from coming anywhere near me, or
So physically, kind of.
yeah, or and contacting me or posting about me on social media. But that doesn't happen. He still posts about me, and every time I do something good, there'll be something. And when I'm happy and I express that on Facebook, something will happen, you know. And
Do you think he could see this?
he'll see this. Yes.
Have you got anything to say to him?
I hope that you will stop hurting other people, because the people you've hurt after me, they've come to me and they spoke, and that 19-year-old boy did not deserve any of that.
How widespread do you think same-sex domestic violence is?
I think it is a big issue, and I think we need to address that, and people need to be comfortable with their relationships. And I think our lawmakers kind of putting us in a category where we're not as good as other people, kind of actually almost inciting domestic violence in a way. Like, I feel like they isolated me, and when I did leave that relationship, there's no support. I went into a meeting with CAS in Victoria, which is Child and Family Services, and we're talking about the domestic violence support group. And when she realised I was the victim and not the perpetrator, she said she can't help me, and she turned me away because I was a man, and she said that I would intimidate the female people if I was in the support group, and if I went into the male support group, I'd be vulnerable to the perpetrators.
So there's a lack of a support network.
Very much so, and within services, and even like, it's hard to admit on White Ribbon Day, it's hard for me to hear violence against women. Australia says no, because for all those times when I remember I was in hospital with broken ribs, I remember when I had to get surgery because I got kicked so bad that over time I got a scar tissue in my stomach that formed a band around my lower intestine and kidney, and it strangled it, and it almost killed me. And I remember that night, and I was in our house in Melton, in Victoria, and when I called the ambulance, he was angry at me and was getting violent with me because he thought I was faking it. And it was the first time I'd seen my brothers in quite some time, and I ended up trying not to go to the hospital, but then it got to a point where it was hurting so much that I went to the hospital, and I was lucky I did, because I had to go in for emergency surgery where they cut me open, took all my organs out, and cut all the scar tissue because it was strangling my organs, and I would have died if I didn't go.
What advice do you have for politicians?
This is a gender diverse issue, and a lot of men probably won't come forward and speak, and statistics aren't necessarily reflecting the truth, because I know from myself, speaking about it makes you feel less of a person, it makes you feel embarrassed, and we've got ego and arrogance for men. And Rosie Batty's done an amazing job with the violence against women, and as a child who experienced domestic violence, I was kind of normalised to it from my stepfather. He sexually abused me and physically assaulted my mum a lot. One time he pushed my mum out the car when she was pregnant with my little sister, and the baby exploded inside my mum's tube, and then it killed my mum in the end. But then my mum got brought back to life, and
So you come from a history of abuse.
yeah. So I grew up in domestic violence. It started when my mum and dad got divorced. My dad actually burnt down our house, and people he tried to take his own life in a house. And that's kind of emotional abuse in itself, I think. But then my mum got another man, and my mum, she's had a hard life herself. When she was 16, she was admitted to Lakeside because she was abused so much, and she can't remember when my nan and pop went to see her. They didn't even recognise her. So I think it's been normalised.
And that's probably why you normalised the abuse in your own.
It was easier for me to get stuck because people say you're attracted to what you know, and it's what I knew, and I kind of did think it was normal in a way, and I didn't, and I kind of thought everyone had the childhood I had. Like, I didn't think that my childhood was bad, and I didn't think I went through all this stuff until I actually did open up to someone and say, hey, this is what's happened, and they're like, whoa, and that's not normal, and that's when I realised it's not normal.
What advice do you have for people in violent, abusive relationships?
If you can get out, get out. If you can't get out, find a way safely to get out. Don't stick around, it's not normal, you're better than that. And don't ever let them make you hard. Keep your softness, because it's beautiful, and the innocence and purity of that is beautiful. Take some time for yourself. Learn to love yourself before you get another partner, because you can fall back into that same trap. And it's a cycle that needs to be broken, but seek help, and don't feel ashamed to seek help. And we need our lawmakers to provide that help so you can seek it. And that's why I'm trying to speak out about it, and as embarrassing as it is for me, because I put myself in a situation, and you get to be a victim once, and then after that you're a volunteer. I hear that all the time from people. But you're still a victim, and you're now a victim, but you're going to be a survivor. And be a survivor, love yourself enough to get out and get to know yourself again, because you don't know yourself right now.
Do you still feel quite affected by that relationship and the abuse?
Yes, time heals, it gets easier, but I do still feel affected, and because of the lack of services for men who experience domestic violence. If I had committed domestic violence, when we done the court case, we've got the freedom of information, and there's 10 pages of convictions and police records, and the hospital admissions there's like something like 150 pages worth of hospital admissions over 3.5 years, just from me alone, from being bashed from my partner. And I still can't get why I never got offered a way out from health professionals either. The Victorian Aboriginal Health Service even knew what was happening. Instead, I just got given Valium and antidepressants, and same with him. If you're a perpetrator of violence, seek help too, because you're better than that. You can get love for love, and not because and not with a fist, and not with hurtful words. And the words that will hurt most, because the scars heal, but what people say to you, like, I still feel ugly because of my partner. He told me when I left him I was never going to get another man. And I believe that, and I still feel like I'm ugly, I still feel like I'm this, but you'll get over that, you know? And I'll get over it one day, but...
Would you like another relationship?
Yes, and I've taken some time for myself, and I've had ups and downs and highs and lows, but now I'm at peace with myself. Not 100%, but I am getting to the point where, yes, relationships are now maybe a possibility, and I'm confident that I won't bring. But it's taken me 3.5 years to be confident that I won't bring the effects from that relationship forward into another one. So it was very important for me to get myself right, so I'm not playing the blame and expecting the violence, because when you expect something, you're putting it on someone almost.
Has it been quite a learning experience for you then?
Yes, and I see my mother from a different point of view now too. I remember blaming my mum for a lot, and now I know that my mum was a vulnerable person as well, and she got preyed upon, and I know exactly what she went through. And
you talked about the stigma of men coming forward, and you talked about egos, etc. Do you think there's much more of a stigma for men coming forward than women?
Yeah, it's a hard line to, yeah, I think it's harder for men to come forward, just because, like, on Australia, White Ribbon Day, I know when I hear all the amazing stuff, you feel good, and then you go for grieving, because you're thinking Australia's embracing this and taking it on, and then just taking charge and making pledges, but there's a lack of realisation that this is gender diverse, and it's not just homosexual men that experience it, or trans men or bi men, it's straight men as well, from women too. And I've seen posts on Facebook like, haha, they deserve it, the motherfuckers, you know, but they don't. No one deserves any violence. And I know women have come to me and said, yes, I've done it to my husband, and there needs to be support. And people are shocked that still had no support from services for domestic violence, you know.
Do you think that will change?
I hope so, and that's why I'm trying to do something.
What can people do to support such a campaign and issue?
Realise that it doesn't just affect women, and that everyone hurts the same, and we might be able to take a punch better, but the emotional abuse still hurts us exactly the same, and it affects us. Still 3.5 years later, I'm still a bit affected. Obviously doing an interview, I'm still a bit not knowing what to say, you know, like just know that had that conversation too, like it needs to be talked about, because something needs to be done and more services need to be provided. And if you're in a position where you can do something, do it, because we're hurting, and there's a lot of people that are hurting like me, and there's a lot of vulnerable people who are stuck somewhere. And if you're a healthcare professional or a police officer, and you see a man that's in there, offer them the same support. And like I felt like if I was a woman, I almost hated being a man for a bit, because if I was a woman, I could have got help, I could have been in a refuge, I could have got this, I could have been safe, but I didn't have that. And so instead I had to be homeless, and I had to go and live on people's couches so I couldn't be found and circulate for 2 years.
Koby, thank you very much.
Thank you.